City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded October 9, 2023.
Okay, we'll call a meeting of the Finance Committee to order. It's 6:53. Please take the roll.
Go ahead.
You want me to do it? Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. Christensen.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Morrow.
Here.
Shuda.
Here.
4 present.
Okay, thank you. Why does my agenda want to pop up? There we go. All right, first item on our agenda this evening, we have approval of the 2024 capital budget. I'm guessing you would like to share some information with us?
Sure. So the capital budget is the same as it was presented last month. So sometimes we have changes, in between, but this year there were no changes sort of between presentation and coming back to the Finance Committee. So the capital budget is before you.
Okay. Any comments and questions from the committee?
So moved.
We have, we'll need a motion first. We have a motion by Alder Morrow. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Shore. Any comments or questions from committee members? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approval of the 2024 capital budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. And that passes unanimously. Item number 3 on our agenda, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Stevens Point, Mid-State Technical College, and the Stevens Point Area Convention and Visitors Bureau relating to funding a study for a downtown convention facility. Is there a motion to consider?
So moved.
Moved by Alder Morrow. Is there a second? Second by Alder Shuda. So we will begin discussion. Director, would you like to share some information with us? I think that would be enlightening.
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Okay, so before you this evening, really are 2 actionable items. One is the memorandum of understanding between the City of the CVB and Mid-State Technical College. Next week, Mid-State will be taking up the same general MOU, outlining essentially what each body's responsibility is. This pertains particularly to the now former Great Lakes Student Loan Servicing Building. Not a lot of folks know this, but the city owns that property. We've been in a lease with Great Lakes for a number of years. They are vacating that space. COVID, there was really no need for them to continue to occupy that office space. And they've actually been bought up by Enlet. So if anyone had student loans through Great Lakes, you're now serviced elsewhere. But the concept is that we would do a convention center and workforce development center within this specific facility. Because city staff and MSTC and CVB all think this is a fine idea, but none of us are necessarily experts in determining the economic feasibility of such a center, it made sense for us to reach out to a consultant who had that experience. So Hunden Group came highly recommended from a number of other folks, and so we had reached out to them. The total cost is $75,000. The city would be covering $35,000 of that out of TIF number 10, and the remaining $40,000 is split evenly between the CVB, which has approved the funding through their own organization, and Mid-State picking up the remaining $20,000, and again, that will be decided next week at their board meeting. So I'm more than happy to answer any other questions, but this is really the first step in addressing economic feasibility, what the site could look like, the need for something like this, just verifying that this is something that we could support as a community. So.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Alder Shore.
Looks like a great partnership. I note that, all the cooperation, including the cost sharing and the division of responsibilities. It is interesting to see that the city can't be entrusted to make it nice. All that's left to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. But I'm sure that reflects their better experience with this sort of thing.
One comment.
Okay,
Since we just had the finding of the pay study as well, I just wanted to point out this is being paid for by the city out of TIF money and not also taxpayer money. So when I think this is something that is a great benefit to us. I know that I know they've said for a long time at the CVB we don't have enough space for things like this, and I know over the years we've had more and more conventions and so on come in to a town, and we just haven't had enough space. So I think this is something that would work really, really well.
Okay. Any other comments by the committee? Okay, we could take comments if anyone from the audience would like to share their thoughts, share any questions, whatever.
So I understand, right, at this, Dave Plaisance, Alderman 6th District. At this point, we're just looking to do the study on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Get information.
Is there any discussion at this point regarding down the road? Because I'm looking here at TIF covering the cost of this, but then there's a cost of construction and everything with that. We gave money to the Convention and Visitors Bureau this past year because they ran short on funds. And now here they are coming up. Where are they going to get the funds to do something like this? No matter what, if it's from a TIF district or not, it's going to be perceived by the taxpayers with what's going on with our reassessments that this is tax money that is going to be put in there. No matter how you're going to say it, it's not going to come out looking good. That's the people in Stevens Point need a Convention and Visitor Bureau. We've got 3 different agencies, and none of them really run a business. None of them are doing the hiring, the paying of the bills, things like that. This is completely different. If the general public and businesses out there right now have not put one up, is there really a need? Do we have the space, if we have a convention center, for people to stay in motels? You know, the Holiday Inn is not going to be promoting this. They've got their own convention and visitor center that they've got to make money on. So all their rooms are kind of shot, so where are you going to put all these people if you get them? I think we're going a little bit ahead of ourselves on here, and we're trying to figure out right now money where it's going to come from to pay for wages. I think that this is a great thought, but I also look at what happened with Stevens Point this past summer with the Century Golf Tournament. Century had a great deal, and everything worked out good for them.
I
we didn't see the overflow in the city on that.
We're getting off of the subject a bit.
Well,
let's focus on just...
That is tourism, and that is people coming to the community.
But we're referring specifically to the Convention Bureau, to the study of a proposed convention center.
Is this study also going to include the costs?
That will be, yes. That'll be part
Cost of
it. Because
reconstruction of everything?
Well,
The yearly cost to run it?
it's my understanding that we're looking at the repurposing of the existing building. It's not being tore down and redone and everything else. But that's, the thing is, the study is what's going to be giving us the information of what the cost will be and whether or not it does make sense economically. So all this is getting information to make sure we do make a good decision. Mr. Mayor?
And I want to point out, too, that the building already exists.
Right.
The study is going to show whether there's a need, whether the city can handle or has a need for a small conference center of this nature. Give us some operating costs, give us some costs associated with the remodel of that existing facility. But the important thing to remember is this will not be funded by taxpayers. The state law allows us as a city, if we own the conference center, room tax can be used to cover all of the expenses related to that conference center. So no city tax money, no operational money is going to go into this. It's going to be covered through room tax, which is generated from the visitors that stay for all the various events. That allows us to cover all operational costs, including salaries and overhead, utilities, as well as the remodel costs that it will take to construct or carry on the facility, whatever it needs, if there's a build-out of the existing building. All of that will be covered through room tax, not taxpayer money.
The amount of money that you're looking at in room tax to cover this is now going to be taken from other programs or other things that, this money just doesn't come from nowhere.
Additional room tax, Alderperson.
What's that?
Additional room tax. The state allows additional room tax to be charged for a municipally owned convention center.
Over and
So
above
our
what's
motel
present.
rooms are going to be going up 10%?
No, well, we don't know yet. This study will help us tell that.
Okay.
And
We're
see
over
if it's-
200
see if
now a
it's-
night than the
See if it's
weekend
viable. We're over 200 what?
for a cost for a motel room around here.
Where do you
Everybody that comes
stay?
to town here is telling me, with everything going on, we're in the area of 200
No.
a
The only
night
time
for
it
motels.
was that high that I know of is, but again, we're getting off the agenda, though.
Moving on.
But yes, that is an important fact to note, that if you do have a convention center, then you are allowed to have a slightly higher room tax. And that differential between our existing room tax and what that would become should be able to, and that's what this study will determine, whether or not that'll be sufficient, what costs are. And so this will allow us to make decision not on conjecture, but on actual facts. Anyone else? Okay. Seems to be it for comments. We should be ready for a vote. Those of you that would be in favor of approval of this memorandum of understanding with the other two entities would signify by saying aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed would be no. And that's approved unanimously. That gets us down to item number 5, a request from the Community Development Department to issue a request for proposals for the property at 14...
Nope.
No,
Or
We need to do 4.
we
Ooh,
skipped
I
one.
skipped that.
3 was the
Oh, gotcha,
MOU
gotcha,
between
gotcha.
everybody, 4 is
All right.
the actual contract.
Gotcha. First we did the MOU, now we needed, yes. We skipped number 4, I apologize. Request from the City of Stevens Point to enter into a contract with Hunden Partners to perform a conference, convention center, and hotel financial feasibility and economic impact study. This is closely connected to our prior thing. Is there a motion?
I move that we do commission such a study.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Shore. Is there a second? Second by Alder Morrow. Comments? Obviously, this is closely related to our prior discussion. Any comments among the committee? Comments from the public? Hearing none. Those of you in favor of the request to enter into that contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would be no. That also is approved unanimously. Now we're to number 5, a request from the Community Development Department to issue a request for proposals for the property at 1450 Water Street. Director.
Before you this evening is a request to issue the request for proposals for the property at 1450 Water Street, formerly known as Edgewater Manor. If you read through the RFP, we do place an emphasis on owner-occupied condo-style housing and/or hotel that are well-designed and facing the riverfront. We consider those to be more competitive as opposed to some other uses that could come along as part of this process. If a developer is going to ask for TIF incentive, that they include performas and specific incentive requests. That's just part of the typical RFP process itself. We do retain the right to reject any and all proposals if they don't fit within the confines of what the city is envisioning for that specific property. Just given the current economic climate, this is a really good time for us to do this, as 2025 projects are in the planning phase right now. So staff does recommend approval as presented. We'll leave it open for about 60 days and give us another 30 days or so to review proposals that come in. And of course, that will involve presentations if we receive successful proposals to this body and the Common Council as well. So more than happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Director. Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. This is a prime location, which we've known all along. What I'm curious about is how that will affect the dynamic in terms of how much, if any, TIF request you would anticipate.
I don't know what to expect. I will say the commercial lending environment has changed pretty drastically since the peak of our economic development a few years ago. Anything that's, the lower the request, the higher it's going to score in the proposal matrix. And that's not necessarily a public document. That's something that is done internally by staff, the mayor, and a few other folks. But of course, anything that's, again, lower requests will receive a higher, more competitive score as opposed to something that's a little bit in the higher end. But I don't know what to expect in terms of specific dollar amounts at this time.
Any other questions?
May I move approval of the issuing of the request for proposals?
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Shore for approval, second by Alder Shuda.
One more comment, if I may?
Sure.
Thank you. I've been approached, and the case has been made to me to instead use this as park, to add it to the park. My own view is that with our budget pressures, with this prime location, that taking it off the tax rolls and passing up the badly needed revenue is really hard to justify. I immediately add that there is it is part of Green Circle Trail. That's understood, and what the director will confirm for me is that the easement has been specified and officialized, or whatever.
So we are working on an easement document right now that the city will essentially sign with the Green Circle Trail, and that will pretty much give from the existing center line of the trail 10 feet towards Water Street, and then from the center line of the trail all the way to the meander line of the Wisconsin River will be all public access, all easement. So we won't lose anything, and it's really important to us that the Green Circle Trail remain there. It's also important to the Green Circle Trail Committee. Additionally, I know there's been some talk of if you could use it for parkland. I think it's important to remember that this is not usable water frontage. Anything really south of the Clark Street Bridge is not a safe user, not safe for recreational purposes. That's why our premier park, Piffner Pioneer and Buchel, are on the north side of the Clark Street Bridge. This is good for fishing and some of those shoreline activities, but not good for actual water usage just because of its danger within near the dam itself. So,
Thank you, Director. Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to point out, too, page 62 of your packet, it shows the approximate parcel, and it shows a Green Circle Trail easement. As the director said, though, the use would be from the existing Green Circle Trail to the riverfront. So there wouldn't be just the Green Circle Trail as the easement. However, with an MOU, we do have some flexibility in talking with likely the same people. Admiral Grant Park is already north of this property, upstream from this property. We could, depending on the MOU, take some additional land and add that to Admiral Grant Park. Or, place some benches along the riverfront. I talked to a few residents who thought that would be a really good idea. So the MOU is really just the starting point to see what's out there. We have flexibility within there to work with whoever may be awarded the project to make sure that the interests of the city are kept first and foremost.
So in the category of integrating well into the park, preserving recreational uses, there are multiple ways to do that. They're on the table. And the point that I made really just pertained to the parcel itself. Thanks.
And I think it's important to note as well, too, that we do have the right, reserve the right to reject all RFPs, too. And so if for some reason we don't have a proposal that seems to meet our community's needs, we'll just put on hold, so that will always be an option. Comments from the public?
Thank you, Chair Ginger Keemer, Alder for District 3. I just had a quick question in regards, within the RFP, it mentions the creation of a selection committee that will evaluate these proposals, so I was just wondering if you could discuss a little bit about the composition of that committee.
It's,
Thank you.
Generally staff.
yeah.
So generally, it's city staff and the mayor's office. And then sometimes we get a chair of either the redevelopment authority or finance committee involved as well. We try to keep it relatively small, and then when we're prepared to bring the public into it and the common council, that's when we would do a presentation with those developers, and they'd make a pitch, more or less, just like a Lullaby has been in the past. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we've already had the motion and the second. I think it's time for us to bring it forward for a vote. All those in favor of issuing that RFP signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed would be no. And that's unanimous as well. That brings us down to approval of claims paid.
Nope.
6. Why am I going too fast? I'm flipping through approval. Oh, good.
I need some dinner waiting at home.
Thank you. Approval of the acquisition of the property at 1200 Main Street, the former Shopko building. First, motion to
I'll move approval of the
second.
acquisition.
Alder Shore moves and Alder Moreau seconds. Director.
Request to acquire the former Shopko property. This has been a kind of a long time coming. We were able to get the property under contract for $1.4 million. That'll be paid for out of TIF number 10. We don't have any immediate plans for that specific property. There's all sorts of options that we'll be looking at. We've recently engaged with Vanderwall and Associates out of Madison to do some blocking exercises on that specific block, but it'll really provide us a unique opportunity over the next few years to really change the look and feel of downtown Stevens Point, and I'm really excited to bring this forward to you folks for consideration.
I'd just like to say, as the alder for that district, that's was one of my incentives for becoming an alder. I mean, that's right now, the first impression of coming to downtown is that empty building, and that's not the best. And you only have one chance to make that first impression. That's not necessarily the best first impression. So I'm excited to see this on the docket, and I'm very much in favor. But other committee members, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. Many of us were present for the discussion of this at Plan Commission. I don't know how well known it is in the public, but this council does have a little bit of a tradition that we attend Plan Commission because of the matters that come through there.
Good point. Anyone else on the committee like to speak to this topic? Public. Anyone want to give us your 2 cents worth? Alder Nebo just has a smile. She loves planning anyway. Yeah, all right. Seems like that's it for our comments then, and vote would be in order. So all those in favor of approving the acquisition of the property at 1200 Main Street, our former Shopko building, would indicate by saying aye. Aye. And opposed would be no. Once again, it's approved unanimously. That does get us to number 7, approval of claims paid.
So moved.
We have a motion by Alder Morrow and a second by Alder Shore. Anything out of the ordinary?
Well, just, this time of the year, there's a lot of contractor payments, so a lot of road work that's been going on throughout the summer. So if you look at especially the list of the $50,000 plus claims, you'll notice a number of contractor payments related to the capital projects that we do.
Some Willett Arena.
Yeah, Willett Arena had has a lot going on there as well, so, yeah.
Eventually, it will stop.
Yeah.
You would hope so. Yeah, it seems like the end never gets here, but any other comments by the committee on our claims paid? Comments from the public? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would be no. Unanimously approved. That exhausts our agenda, and we are adjourned at 7:18.